Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another Lorcana video. Today I have for you yet one more round of gameplay from the Lorcana HQ Discord's constructed tournament held in August. In this game, I'm actually playing against a fellow top 8 finalist, Joe Ramirez, so definitely not a deck to sneeze at. It has a really original idea too. I like the idea he was going with. If you want to take a peek at his deck and also learn more about mine, I cover it in this video linked here right now. Also below in the description. But yeah, let's get into the meat of it and get into the game. I get first play this game and also actually get Detective Mickey in my starting hand pre-mulligan. So I hold on to it and I develop your brain and throw out the rest, hoping to see some Tala, hoping to see some more mid-range plays. After that, I ink a dragon and play my develop your brain. I see a Maui and a Mickey, so it's an easy pickup on Maui, along with the added bonus of sending that Mickey to the depths of my deck. My opponent inks Hans and passes. I do not draw into a 2-drop here. I do still have a develop your brain though, so I ink the Scar I draw and play that. Somewhat luckily, I see yet another Mickey. I do think about holding onto it this time just to ramp even harder, but decide against it ultimately. I've now dumped 2 Mickeys to the bottom of my deck and probably don't have to worry about hitting my last one in the upcoming top deck war. My opponent inks Gaston and passes. He's probably aware I'm playing a control deck, so Gaston doesn't do much against me and isn't worth playing. So smart play. On my turn, I'm hitting 3, so I get to play Detective Mickey to get the party started. My opponent inks Hans and plays Tinkerbell Tiny Tactician. Now, there's a possibility he could shift into Giant Tank next turn, so it's good to keep in mind and play around that. I ink my Queen Jasmine, and for lack of a better play, I play out my Maui. I just didn't want to waste the ink. He does also put pressure on the board, and I do have another in hand in case I need it, so that's still a surprise play whenever that comes down. Tiny Tank can't take out Mickey on her own though, so I do feel good with questing. If he does shift an attack next turn, I do have my Maui already on board, ready to take it out. On my opponent's turn though, he inks Baby Aladdin and plays out a Hans, so I guess he was just sitting on at least 3, which explains why a lot of them ended up in ink. I actually ink Let It Go here on my turn to drop Jasmine. Maybe a little hasty. I have a few options here I could have played around with. I'm assuming I felt like I had the board under control here with the Mauis, so felt comfortable inking away to Let It Go. My opponent quests with Hans here to ping Jasmine, then he inks up to 5 to drop Grab Your Sword. Honestly fine here. I'm still feeling pretty okay with this line of play. I can trade with a Tink here and drop my other Maui to trade with Hans. I am pretty susceptible to a repeat Grab Your Sword, and Giant Tink would take out 2 of my 3 characters as well, but I'm still feeling pretty good with this. My opponent inks a Taka and looks like the play here is Giant Tink. Better for me, I have a couple options for removal here, so I decided to ink my Monstrous Dragon and use Hades since it drops a body along with the removal. There is a question on which Maleficent I should have inked here. I think I go with Dragon since I'd have to top deck some inkable cards here to be able to hit the 9 that would be required to play Monstrous Dragon. So I'd rather have the definite 5 drop, so that must be my line of thinking here. He inks an Aladdin to reach and drop BLT. Wishful thinking that this would get through unscathed. This is partially why I don't run any in my own list. I feel like he takes too long to come down and he doesn't survive very long when he does. Since I top deck another dragon, I'm close enough to hit it here that I ink the 5-drop Mal. For 7, my opponent drops Heroic Aladdin. I'm hoping for an ink here so I can drop the dragon. Instead, I get a Hades, which totally works instead. My board's looking good now, and I'm thinking my opponent's fishing. He inks a Gaston, plays a Fire to Cannons, and actually drops a whole new world. Honestly, I'm not complaining. I do lose my dragon, but get to see a fresh new hand with board control and full ink. He plays another Tactician Tink and passes it back to me. I have a lot of options now. In the back of my mind though, I'm still thinking about my opponent's Be Prepared. I don't want to invest too much into the board just to be wiped. I already have significant board control, so I don't want to invest that much more. I drop a Baby Aurora and a Tala. Won't miss them if they're gone. Also, if he does wipe my board, Tala just does me the favor of going into ink. My opponent does end up going for the wipe as predicted. He drops a Gaston for good measure as a follow-up. Now that I'm cleared up a bit, I drop Heroic Aladdin. The following turn, my opponent plays down a Beast and a Taka. This softly signals that he doesn't have a follow-up Be Prepared, so I'm feeling a little more at ease. I have the extra ink for a Mickey drop, so why not? On my opponent's turn, he drops Simba Return King. We seem to just be at a standoff here, staring at each other, daring the other to blink. I have a Scar in hand, so I really want him to exert something so I can hit him hard with Aladdin. I play Dreaming Guardian and Quest with Mickey as a soft bait. My opponent plays a 1-drop Simba, and then he does take the bait with Gaston. What kind of blindsided me here is a second A Whole New World. Should have probably seen this coming. I was too fixated on the Be Prepared though that I did not consider this. Kinda sad, I lose a lot of good cards in this exchange, but I will definitely remember that for the remainder of the games that we have to play. He plays another Tiny Tactician and a Mulan with his remaining ink. A bit of an overextension if you ask me, especially since his Whole New World has netted me my board wiping Be Prepared. I play Develop Your Brain first, seeing a Robin Hood and Mal. I opt to keep Mal since I have 2 other Robins in hand, so no need for another. I trade with Aladdin to lose my opponent to 2 lore in addition to my gaining 2. Quest with Aurora, then I drop the bomb. At the end of the day, I have enough ink for Tala, so I drop her for good measure. My opponent drops a colorful collection of characters on his turn. Simba, followed by Simba, followed by Simba, and then his last tank and a Mulan. I'm actually at 15 lore at this point when the turn comes back to me, so with 10 ink I drop Dreaming Guardian and Mal to threaten lethal. I don't quest with Tala as I don't want to give Mulan the easy challenge to buff the rest of his little questers. My opponent is all but forced to quest across the board and drop his Be Prepared. From his list we can see now, we know it's his second and last one. At the time though, I was still on my toes because I didn't know that. On my turn, I drop Robin Hood, Tala, and Street Rat Aladdin. Not quite enough for lethal, but a formidable board nonetheless. My opponent drops a Gaston and smashes Aladdin. On my turn, I develop my brain for good measure, decide to keep a Dragonfire, I blast Gaston just to keep my board alive, and I pass. Honestly, I should have just played the Jasmine since I still had the additional ink, but it doesn't matter, my opponent is out of answers. We take the first game, and quickly, let's move on to the second one. Before Mulligan, we have Tala but no Mickey, so we're tossing the rest, including Develop Your Brain, to look for him. My opponent inks Big Simba for Little Simba and discards a Whole New World, almost definitely telegraphing that he has another in hand, so I'm going to play accordingly, especially after getting surprised by it last game. In my hand, I did draw into my Mickey, so we are in luck there. We also have 3 Talas, so we're gonna start inking them. No Develop in hand anymore, so we pass turn. My opponent quests and inks Mulan. No 2 drops, so it's back to us. I ink a Mal and play Tala. Should have just inked the other Tala in my opinion, but that's fine either way. My opponent gets another Simba down and he tosses a baby Aladdin with it. He inks yet another baby Aladdin and still no 2 drop. So a pretty slow start for my opponent, luckily for me. I'm going to take advantage of this. I ink Jasmine and bring out my Mickey Mouse Detective on 3. I'm now primed for a 5 ink play next turn, be it either Dragonfire or Maleficent. My opponent inks Hans, which tells me there's another Hans, and there it is. He quests with both Simbas again. So on my turn, I have a pretty easy trade with one of the Simbas using Mickey and Tala. And I finally inked the Tala I've been holding on to for no reason and bring out my Maleficent. My opponent quests across the board and actually doesn't have a turn 5 play. Surprising, I thought he would at least take Mickey out with Simba. This is pretty bad for him though. I'm curious what his hand looks like. I'm assuming it's just a bunch of higher cost cards that he cannot play yet. I'm in a pretty good spot now though, obviously. So I pull a Develop Your Brain. I see 2 Hades of it, so no choice. I get to keep one of them. Not really complaining about that though. I still have 5 inks, so I Dragonfire to Hans. Just wanted to keep the tempo up. I still have plenty of removal in hand, another Dragonfire or Hades now, and a Be Prepared, so I'm not too worried. After that, I can pretty freely quest across the board. My opponent ends up inking a Smash to play a Tinkerbell, so now I see why he left Mickey alive last turn. Pretty easy response from me though. I just ink my Scar I'm holding and play Hades on Tinkerbell. Mal continues to quest for free, so here we kind of showcase how dangerous this card is exactly. Off 2 turns, I've already gained 6 lore, or 30% of my win condition. Crazy card, I'm going to stand by that. On his turn, he's all but forced to be prepared to wipe my board. My hand is actually just removal now, so I actually just have to pass it back to him. My opponent actually just passes it back to me as well. Now it's looking like a good control matchup. I get to develop your brain, so down it goes. I see Mickey and Aladdin, so easy Aladdin pickup for me. I ink let it go away to be able to play him. Maybe I shouldn't be so hasty, knowing we're both just holding on to removal. But he's probably not long for this world whenever I do play him anyway, so just want to get the game going still, I will play him early. He actually drops Big Tink on his turn, so Aladdin lives to see another day. Tink does not though, as on my turn I will Dragonfire her off the board and quest. My opponent drops Big Bad Steel Maui on board. I debate throwing out Monstrous Dragon. It would require inking my Mal though, and not sure if I want to accelerate just for that, especially with a Be Prepared threat still possible. Instead, I just Dragonfire, keep to my small lead, and quest again. My opponent drops BLT on his turn, and here's the real issue with like a mid-rangey deck against control, where I always seem to have an answer for the big drops you play, and you can only play them once per turn. I ink the Robin Hood I draw, and I Monstrous Dragon away his BLT. My opponent gets a Simba, and after cycling cards, he shows he has 2 smashes to get rid of the dragon. On my turn, I drop Maleficent to threaten lethal after questing. There's a thought to holding off in fear of Be Prepared, especially when I have no other characters in hand, but I'd rather force it here if that was the case and wait on a top deck, especially since I'm still holding a lot of removal in hand. My opponent ends up showing all he has is Street Rat Aladdin, which is just barely short of stopping me from ending. Not enough though, and I get the second win as well. I may have gotten a little lucky seeing how many turns my opponent had to skip, but good games regardless. Hard fought win for sure. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay. If you did, I would appreciate it if you liked the video and subscribe if you want to see more. I will try to get more out to you guys as soon as I can. So yeah, I'll catch you guys up next time, and see you later in the next one. Ciao.